Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise. President Buhari's marching order to the central bank on companies that must be embargoed from smuggling and dumping agricultural products has been applauded as a sign of progress by some stakeholders in the sector. But what remains a sticking point for a lot of people is the question of how the intended beneficiaries of this presidential largesse, namely farmers, can effectively utilize the opportunity without falling victim to attacks by rampaging herdsmen across the country. With Nigeria also playing catch-up in international palm oil business, what needs to be done for the country to regain her pride of place in this sector? To throw more light on this, we're now being joined by Wale Oyekoya, the Chief Executive Officer of Bama Farms and Chairman of Agriculture Sector of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Nice for having me.
As you heard in our introduction, and it was all in all the headlines yesterday of the president's declaration and the support that he has declared to palm oil and other sectors, and then also reiterating the existing ban, but also on people and on punitive, on what will happen to people that are importing and dumping. What do you say when people say, do we produce enough for all these declarations? What is your response to them?
First of all, I have to give to the president for blacklisting some of the saboteurs. I call them saboteurs for really impeding on the local contents of this country. And to me, it's a shame for us to be importing something that we can really produce in our country. And this is why most of the gel that's supposed to be in our country is being exported out, and at the same time, just wasting our foreign reserves that are supposed to be used for manufacturing equipment. And to me, this is what we've been telling the government that are listening. There's no point importing some of these things. Number one, it's killing the local contents, it's killing the farmers, it's killing the family, and it's killing the country. You have to understand that this palm produce that we're talking about, we used to be the best in the whole world. We used to be the largest exporter. We used to be the largest producers. Now the Malaysians come to our country, take this seed, went to their country and do research and were able to do better than us. Now they're the largest exporter of this produce. Why are we taking the back seat? It's because of the summer-sub policy we'll be having from the government. We have so many policy. In fact, if you look at the policies in Nigeria, we have the most beautiful ones. But implementation is always the key. If we have really sustained what we have been having in the olden days, because you remember in the 60s and the 70s, we used to be the first 10th unit in most of these farm produce. Talking of cocoa, talking of palm oil, talking of groundnut, and so many like that. So we need a formidable and sustainable policy in order for us to be on top the way we used to be. And the federal government cannot do this thing alone. I keep on saying that, especially in the Southwest, where most of these palm produce is well shining. Let all the stakeholders, especially the new state governors that are within the Lagos, Ogun, or Oyo, to really come up. And we've been talking to some of them anyway, because they have realized how much they can make from this oil palm. Because you have to understand that we have so many off-takers. Not that we don't have the buyer for this produce. What is really wrong with us is not putting the right person in the right position, because there's no point putting somebody that doesn't know anything about agric and making to be the commissioner or the minister of agriculture. This is where the most problem comes. So we have to put the round peg in the round hole. That's the first. Then number two is to have a formidable policy that is going to ginger most of the youths back into the agri sector. I'm of the opinion that in the back days we used to run agricultural sector in most of our secondary schools. But nowadays, most of these secondary schools have turned into playing ground, where nobody's interested in agriculture. And we like it or not, we have to go back to the soil, because this is the only sector that produced most of the GDP, that increased our GDP, number one, that gave us most of this employment, especially to the youth. And if you look at the age brackets of people in this sector now, they are old. They are winding down. So that's why they need to bring back the youths. And if you look at the agri sector, it's very broad. Some people have to produce this thing going to the farm. Some people have to add value. Coming back to the adding value, our main problem in this country, we don't add value. We produce, we just ship. And they have to refine most of this produce and bring back to our country and buy at an expensive rate of prices, just like oil. The same thing is now to the produce of our farm produce.
So you've raised a lot of interesting issues, but I want you to clarify. Yes, that's a lot of information we need to process.
Yes.
I want you to clarify. The first thing you said about government policies was that we have beautiful policies, but implementation is a problem.
Definitely.
But then later on, you said that we need formidable policies. So which is it? What is it that the government needs to do policy-wise to create an enabling environment? That's number one. And secondly, the CBN governor, Emefiele, has said that they've invested 30 billion naira on palm produce. Has that money, has the difference been felt? How, because going back to implementation, if you've made this investment, has it been made where it ought to have been made?
Well, most of the policy behind by our government, both by the state and the federal, we always have it in papers. But we need a reality show. And we need a people's oriented policy. We don't just want a policy that is on papers. We want a policy that's going to work, that you're going to put the right people and bring all the stakeholders. Agriculture is not something you just sit down in the comfort of your office and want things to be done. It has to be in the field.
Tell us some of what the bullet points you would like to see.
The most important thing, as I said, to have a very formidable policy and that is very implementable.
What should that policy be?
The policy is that there's no point for us importing some of these things. So if the government can say, okay, the CBN is buying this thing backed by the federal government, let it stand, let it remain, so that nobody will come through the back.
Let's talk about that actually through the back. One of the things that people have said is that there is quite a lot of produce that is still coming through the back doors. Sure. Rice being one of them, in spite of the aggressive policies. How is this still possible? And what do we need to do?
We have to understand our borders are very porous. We have over
First of all, is it still happening?
It's still happening.
Okay.
Because 80% of the food we still eat in this country, take it or leave, we still import them. 80%. And that is
why... Of that 80%, what is legally imported and what, in your opinion,
both legally and illegally. And there's nothing like legally. When there's something we can produce and people still bring through the back doors. You have to understand that we've been talking about trying to tighten up our borders. We have a porous border that
Which border does most of this food come in from?
Mostly from Benin Republic. And you know, there are so many villages.
But if we know that, why can't we target that?
Well, that is the job of the Nigerian custom.
So that's one of the things you would like to see?
Oh, yes. We'd like to see that if some of these things can really be curtailed, and if it's not coming to the country, you see that a whole lot of farmers will come out, and a whole lot of local content. Go to most of these big supermarkets. Go there and see where most of this produce come from. It's either South Africa or Ghana. And these are the things that can be produced in our country. So we have raised this issue several times, that listing. This thing can be produced here. Why do we have to be spending our money to be importing it? And why are we taking away some of these jobs from our youth to other countries and import their own?
All right, I don't want us to lose this 80% that you said is still imported. What other items are part of that 80% that is imported that can be produced here?
Apart from the palm oil, vegetable oils, even gari, there was a time that is being imported from India that I think I appeared on one of these, yes, from India, made in India. What is wrong with us? Yes, it was packaged, well packaged from India. We raised the issue another time, and they went to investigate it, and they said it is true. So we have a disconnect between the producers and the government. The government really don't know what is going on. That's why I said that we need a policy off the papers. You need to get the right people to do this thing. I'm not going to make mention of some state that just bring some people that does not even know anything about agriculture, that people like us have to be their consultants. People like us have to be teaching them.
Engaging the wrong people.
Exactly. And agri sector is one of the most important sectors in this country, in any state.
Well, in any country.
In any country, if you really want to feed your citizens. Let us forget about all this political appointment we are talking about that put the round peg in a round hole. Don't just go and bring some because somebody say, put this person there. And I bet you that if you have somebody that has a real passion, a technocrat. The last time we have a better Minister for Agriculture is when we have Dr. Akinwumi Additional, if you could remember.
Yes.
Because he was a technocrat and he was able to get the job done. But when it comes to the hands of politicians, they always kill some of these people's oriented policy that this man have. So as I said, most of the state governors, especially in the Southwest, there should be something like economic summit to bring some of this Malaysia, where Malaysia already stolen the technology from us. Now you have to go back now and buy it back from them. And they have to come and give us some technical know-how, how they are able to do in their own country. If you go to Indonesia today, every street, they planted some of these oil palms. The same thing can be done in Nigeria. If you look at where we are buying some of this saline, like in 940 in Benin, they will give you a headache to even buy the seedling of this oil palm to produce. Not even oil palm we are talking about. Look at cassava. If you know how much you can generate from cassava, and Nigeria is the largest producer of this cassava, trillions of naira have been lost because we are not adding value. Look at all this starch. Look at all this, something that, so many things that we could make from cassava, but we are losing it because we have not been having people's oriented policy that is going to give us a blueprint on how to do this thing.
What is your opinion on Tuesday's announcement by the federal government that they're going to conduct a soil analysis all over the country to determine what crops will thrive best where?
This thing have been done before. They have the record. Why going through the back door again? We need actions this time around. And to me, if I'm going to tell Mr. President, you have to declare a state of emergency for agriculture. Because look at the market. If you go to the market today, some of this food stuff are very expensive compared to 2-3 years ago. Instead of the prices coming down, it's going up. So this tells you that we are not really doing much in the agricultural sector. And if you look at the second quarters, that we're supposed to that our agri-produce supposed to go up was going down because we are not really producing now. We think that we are producing now. That is why we don't really have enough going around. And the little one that are being produced is still being channeled to all these neighboring countries like Benin or Chad or Cameroon. So we have not been able to feed ourselves. And we're exporting the little one that we're supposed to satisfy ourselves. So, and that is why you see most of these importations are coming in, because if you look at the cost of production, some of these produce from other countries, there's no way the local farmer could be able to compete, because the enabling environment is not there for us in this country. Look at the new rate that the NAFDAC just brought up. Instead of them to reduce the rate of how we register some of our farm produce or some of these products, the price was going up.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to pick up where we leave off, especially now that you've mentioned NAFDAC. We're going to a short break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We're still in the studio with Wale Oyekoya, the Chief Executive Officer of Bama Farms and the Chairman of the agriculture sector of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Sir, before we went on break, you were talking about some of the NAFDAC policies, and instead of those policies to be actually more encouraging, they're becoming more restrictive. I want you to talk about that, but also talk about the general regulatory landscape. And the reason why is because over the last couple of weeks, what people have been complaining about, over a couple of months in Nigeria, is the multiple regulatory environment. And therefore, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. Is that the same thing in agriculture? But please start with NAFDAC.
See, in the process that you are trying to generate incomes to the purse of the federal government or state government, you are affecting some sector that is supposed to really encourage. If you're going to come to me for taxations, give me a tax break, maybe like 2-3 years. Let me be able to feel comfortable that even if you have come to me with all the infrastructure that is very deficit in this country, where I provide my own roads, my own security, my own water, my own light, you should be able to give me a break. But in the process, that's why you have all these regulatory bodies. All what they're after is generating revenue for the government. There's nothing wrong with that. Every known country, every sound country were able to build the economy through taxations. But the citizens should be able to see what you are paying your taxes for. You can bear me witness the bad road you have before you drive your car down here. This is wear and tears on your vehicles. And the government is not going to give you a break for repairing your vehicle. The same thing, like we're trying to import some of these farm produce. Look at the bottlenecks at the port. Before you even get to the port, some of your produce will get bad, maybe in the containers or in the vehicles. And moreover, there's no even registered trucks that is really available. The road will not allow it to really function. So there's a whole lot of problem that the regulatory bodies are supposed to take into consideration. And I believe they should be one-stop shop.
For agriculture.
For agriculture. That is why I like the new state governor coming from Ogun State and Oyo State. They wanted to have farm settlements in their state. Because without the farm settlement, you will not be able to do much. With farm settlements, the farmers are ready to produce. The off-takers are ready to...
Explain more about how a farm settlement works.
Farm settlement is where you have a set of people in a community where you provide them with water, light, electricity, everything. That everything needed, even build a house for them. They just come out of their house, go to the farm, and there's going to be industry. It's just like a cluster of farmers scattered.
Okay.
And by the time they produce, the government is ready to mop up this thing from them, and the producers are ready there to add value. If we are really exporting what we produce, where we add value to our farm produce, we make more money than the state we are today. Look at cashew. We just collect our cashew nuts, send them out without processing. And these people from India, the Vietnamese, they will process it and come and sell it, and we will be buying the cashew nuts from these big supermarkets. So we need to be adding value. And this is where the regulatory bodies comes in. Either you are SON, you are NAFDAC, or you are custom. You need to be able to put into your brain that these are perishable items. You see some farmer carrying their chicken, carrying their farm produce. You see all this road safety. They're stopping them until they can grease their elbows. And before you get to the point that you're taking them, you see that some of the chicken are dead or some of your produce are already spoiled. So we need to really talk to the regulatory body that you should be given a priorities to farm produce. Anywhere in the world, farmers are always taken seriously. It's only in this country they don't. And the federal government are trying by bringing out some of these funds, which is what they call funds for farmers. But some of these funds are not really getting to the real farmer that really need it. That is why I keep on talking about political farmers or POFO farmers that benefit mostly from some of these intervention funds that the federal government is rolling out through the CBN, through the Ministry of Agriculture. There's a whole lot of money coming up, but it's not really getting to the real farmer. That is why we are having so many deficits in some of what we produce. So the regulatory body, now we are filing a petition to the NAFDAC that, listen, if you are talking of enabling environment, as the federal government is talking about, because NAFDAC is part of this, an agent of federal government, why are you inconveniencing people? Why are you increasing your rate when you have not even been able to see the problem of these farmers?
What you've described is a downright hostile environment in which
Very, very
to
hostile.
conduct the business of agriculture.
Very, very hostile.
There's that, which is bad enough, then compounded by the security issue. Let's talk about the farmer-herders clashes, because we all read these alarming headlines, but how severe is the problem?
It's a very serious problem. I remember one time I was called to Enugu to see how some of these farmers were slaughtered by herdsmen. I saw it by my eyes. So this is a place that the government really need to tackle, because if you look at nobody has been really arrested. Or if they're arrested the following day, one godfather will just allow them. And that is why the killing keep on continuing. And it's affecting our food security. We like it or not, look at Benue. Half of the people that are used to do farming, they are no more in the farming business because they are scared. And I don't blame them. The same thing in Ogun State, the same thing in Odo State. It's all over, even in Katsina, where our president come from. You could remember recently that their emir was kidnapped. So kidnapping by herdsmen and killing of farmers by herdsmen is taking too long for the federal government to really address. Nobody, even in Ekwe here, where I have my own farm, that's between Itokin and Ekwe. If you see how they kidnap people over there, until recently when one of the directors for the federal fire department was kidnapped, until they started cutting the bush. Why do you have to wait until things happen before you take actions? So security is a key, and this is part of the infrastructure we are talking about. And we keep on talking about foreign direct investment in this country. No investor will come to a country that is not safe. Let us take that. No matter how juicy the incentive you are giving them, if the environment is not conducive, they will not come. Who wants to lose his life because of making some dollars? So the security, the aspect of infrastructure like the road, security, light, have to be taken seriously. If the government really wants the economy of this country, if care is not taken, we are getting to another recession, another 1 year. In less than a year, if we can continue with this trend, because if you are not able to feed your people, if there's so much of unemployment, if there are so many people hungry around you, that you are looking for chaos. And all this thing that is happening is nothing but restlessness, where people are not fully engaged, where they are not employed. Because if you are fully engaged, look at you now in the morning, you have something to do. There's no way, if whatever happened outside, it doesn't concern you because you are fully engaged.
So one of the things I want to ask you is when you look at different states in the country, one of the things we heard was that Edo Governor Obaseki has apportioned 118 hectares of land for palm oil. Tell us more about what that means. What states you think are really doing well when it actually comes to supporting farmers and creating the right and enabling environment? There's a real ease of doing business around farming so that people actually know where they can go if they do want to get information about actually how to get into agriculture.
Yeah, there are some states, especially the north, that are doing good, don't get me wrong. And most of what's supposed to go to the southwest is going to the north. Almost every local government in the north, they have tractors. But in the southwest, even in Lagos State, they don't have more than 4 tractors. They don't have no bulldozer. So if you have a virgin land, forget about it. You can't use a tractor. You need a bulldozers. But with what Ogun State are trying to do, I'm very familiar with Ogun State. That's why I keep on talking about Ogun State, because the new governor, Dapo Abiodun, is really trying. In fact, agriculture is his main point in order to raise the economy of the state. Okorosha really tried, because he planted in more than 3,000 hectares of oil palm. Had it been that he continued with the gun, which is not possible, he was trying to make Imo State one of the best states to have farm produce, which is what Ogun State are trying to do. Ogun State is very good in terms of planting oil palms because the land is very good, and they have the land anyway. So I'm suggesting that if Ogun State or your state and Osun State can even create just 50,000 hectares of land devoted for this oil palm, in fact, no state will be able to match them in terms of revenue. And a lot of people will be employed anyway. And there's already off-takers already. Malaysians are ready. You know why the Malaysians are all over the world now? Because their oil palm is the best in the whole world.
So even better than Indonesia?
Oh, yes.
They're number one. Indonesia's number 2. We're number 5, 2%.
Yes. We used to be number 1. Now we are in the back.
But then they said that because of the insecurity.
No, and it's even 2%. If you say number 7, it still sounds good. Or number 5, 2%.
Yeah, but 2%. But they've also said now that even with the insecurity, that our production is going down, so we're not even producing as much as we used to.
So it's even lower than 2%.
Yeah,
madam. If with what the federal government is doing under the leadership of Buhari, if he can really tighten the state governors, forget about the federal, it's the state governor that have the power to do this thing. Because that's why we'll be talking about reviewing the 1978 Land Use Act, which give the powers to the state governors. So let the governor use the power to really create an enabling environment for farming, especially in the oil palm. Accepted that Lagos State does not have no farm to really, does not have no land to do the farming. But Ogun State, they have the best opportunity to tap. Because with 25 million people in Lagos, they need food. And Ogun State is just a stone throw. A stone throw. It's an opportunity in terms of housing, in terms of agriculture. And look at what happened with the Metros rice they're talking about in Ogun State. It's nothing but a fraud. I'm a witness to it. We're supposed to have, you know, what do they call it? Ofada rice supposed to come from Ogun State. Go to the Ofada, where they call Ofada now. There's not much production going on there. The past administration didn't do much. And that is why the new government of today are trying to revive some of these comatose farm settlements and some of these industry in the rice production.
So how much rice is being produced in Ogun State today? How much?
To me, the percentage is I think it's about 400,000 metric tons. And we're supposed to be producing over 4 million metric tons. And we have a deficit, a whole lot. That is why we are importing some of these things to the country, because there's no way we could meet the demands of Nigerians. And if we are not producing enough, what will happen? You see all these importers through the legal means bringing this into the country. The only thing I will tell the government, if you really want to force down the price of any produce, and you want to start the importation of this thing, improve your production. It's a very simple mathematics. If you can improve on your production and we have excess, the price of the imported one will be forced to go down. And our own will still be stabilized. And you'll be surprised how many employment and how many revenue we could be able to generate.
Wow. All right. We're going to go on another break. You're very passionate about agriculture, and you really know your onions on this, so this is great. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to you more about actually the life cycle of palm oil and how long it takes and how long it lasts for. So we're going on a short break. When we come back, we'll learn more about palm oil and the opportunity. Welcome back to the morning show. We're still in studio with Wale Oyekoya, the Chief Executive Officer of Bama Farms and the Chairman of the Agriculture Sector of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you for being here again. Before we went on break, we were talking about Nigeria's level of production, especially in palm oil. People have said, you know, this is really the real oil we need to be involved in. This is where the real wealth lies. You're talking about young people getting more involved in agriculture. Help people understand, though, how long it takes, because palm oil is not something that you plant today and start to harvest tomorrow. Tell us a little bit about that life cycle, how long a palm can last you.
Oil palm that's why they call it life tree. Because if you plant oil palm tree today, it could last up to 30 to 35 years. After 3 years, it started fruiting. But what I'm encouraging some of these new governors that just came in, that let us go for Malaysian seedling now, because they have done their research. Instead of taking 3 to 4 years like the one we have in Nigel in Benin, Malaysia have already have their own seedling with their research that does not take more than 2.5 years before it started fruiting. So if you add 2.5 years, if you started early, definitely the plant might die early, like 30 years. But like the one we used to have in Nigel before, it take like 35 years. So if you can plant something and started making from 2 years to 30 years, add 28 years to your life. So that means that's what they call a life tree. And everything in palm tree is money. Everything. There's nothing is wasted. That is why you see some of these cosmetics, pharmaceutical companies, they really like, even the water that really, we call it, because if you look at the makeup that most ladies are using and the lotions, they use some of this, the water they make from the oil palm, they add it to it because it has a lot of nutrients in it. So that's why anything in palm produce is money. So the last one is about 30 to 35 years. So that is why we call it cash crops. And the same thing with cocoa, the same thing with rubber. So if it's only some of these perishable items like vegetable that their lifespan is like 3 months. Some of them are 45 days like cucumber. So I see no reason why Nigeria cannot be making money.
So when you plant cucumber,
it's 45 days. 45 days. Like something like pepper, onion, tomatoes, they are between 2 months to 3 months at most. And you can still be harvesting the next 2 years of pepper or tomatoes. So that is why many governments now, they are trying to have greenhouse. Greenhouses means that it's a controlled environment where you have more yield, because there will be no insects coming in, and the water coming to the plants are being regulated. To me, it's a very good way to go. But I believe Nigeria have got the best land in the whole universe, that you don't need much of this technology. But, you know, in the absence of not knowing what you do, some people really want the greenhouse, which is good because this time to harvest is very short. And it's a controlled environment.
I want to ask you a personal question now, because you've talked about all the challenges in this sector, and rightly so, they need to be highlighted. But I want to know why you went into farming, how you went into farming, because when we're talking about challenges, we also need to have a sort of note of encouragement to the youth population who ought to get into this endeavor, because we can create hundreds and thousands of jobs, millions even, full-time and seasonal. So can you take us back to how you felt when you actually went into farming?
See, in life, it's not about how much money you have, but how you can make a difference in somebody's life. When I came back from US, I looked at the population of Nigeria. I said, wow, when I left, the population of Nigeria was about 70-something million. But when I came back, it was almost about 180 million. Something just struck my mind. What does these people need? Food. I saw you drinking now. You are drinking from my farm. And I'm happy to see that you say you have banana, you have almond, you have everything grounded together. That's a very healthy meal. It might not be solid food, but you'll be surprised what it's going to do to your body. So it's a passion. If you want to go into agriculture, don't go into it because of the money. The money will come, but the first thing to have a passion. So that is why I keep on hammering to the government that trying to get the people that have the passion for this thing, not people that just think about the money. If you go into the agriculture because of the money will not come quick. But if you go because of the passion, I started with just almost about 2 ponds of fish pond in my farm before we have over 100 fish pond, before we expand to poultry, piggery, plantation, all kind of stuff, it's a gradual thing. It's not a quick fix sector like oil and gas, and that is why the government are mixing it. They want quick money within 6 months. They want, and that is why banks are not really interested in agriculture. If you look at our bank, I don't call them banking, I call them retail banking, because they don't really invest in the real sectors. They want where they can get their return within 6 weeks or within 6 months. And there's no way you are going to plan. You just asked me the gestation period of oil palm, which I said, minimum now, if you can get the Malaysian ceiling, is 2.5 years. With the one we have in Nigeria today is 3 to 4 years. So what am I going to do with the loan you give to me? And you want me to start paying back within 6 months when my produce have not even started fruiting. So this is why farmers got frustrated. So there's something we call moratoriums. If you're going to give me money for vegetable, give me 6 months moratoriums. If you're going to give me money to plant some of these cash crop like oil palm, cocoa, rubber, or cashew, you must be able to give me 3 years moratorium. And there's no bank in Nigeria. We give you 3 years moratorium. So this is where subsidy from the government comes in. Anywhere in the world, if you really want to feed your people, you must give farmers subsidy and subsidize whatever they produce, buy it from them, and there's something we call warehousing. Warehousing means let all the farmers go and produce. Warehouse them. And there's something we call warehouse ticket. You can use that warehouse ticket to go and get a loan, a soft loan from the binder. We already got this produce from this farmer. It's in my warehouse. You can give them loan to go back. And that way, what the farmer gives to me, I'll be able to sell it to the manufacturers. You understand? And there must be an enabling environment. As I said, if you can be able to have farm estate, which we call industrial farm estate or agro-processing estate, which means only meant for the farm produce, that whatever you produce there is an easy access to market. And from there, a lot of people will be interested to export. Export is another thing that we have to discuss maybe from some other time, because if you started an export today, we will not live here today. Yeah, that is why we are trying to make most of our foreign exchange. And with the oil palm, yes, we can make a whole lot from exporting some of our oil palm, like Malaysia and Indonesia. They are ready today. If any state is ready, that's why I'm saying that the Southwest governor, they need to have economic summit on oil palm. Let all the state governors, let them come together. We have partners with some of this Malaysia, the top producer of this oil palm, that they are ready to come and partner with us and give us technical know-how, apart from what we have here. Then extension service officers are really needed. What do? They will teach you how to do your farming. They will teach you when to plant, when to apply your herbicide, when to apply your insecticide, and when to harvest. So this is where the government really need to come in. They have them in the Ministry of Agriculture doing nothing because they have not been empowered. You cannot expect a field officer to go into the farm without no trucks, which is like hillocks or something movable to take him there, to really encourage him. So we have a whole lot that we can do together if we have the right thinking government. Agriculture will go a long way in this country. And you'll be able, in fact, you'll be surprised that the price of oil palm is still more than the oil that we are selling. So why are we not even taking advantage of it? And it's even more easier, it's environmentally friendly to produce some of this oil palm compared to the
black gold.
To the black gold that we're talking about.
We might not have a choice because the whole world is moving away from fossil fuels.
They are using, exactly. So I remember when I was in China, you know what they use? They use gas. They will ask everybody to get out from their car. You just bring your, like the cooking gas you have in your house, they fill it up, and that's what you use for your car. So they don't need your oil in China. So the same thing with US, they have really cut down all the production that we are giving them in US because they have more than us.
Yes. Now they have more.
They have more than us. So my own advice is that the government really need to relax on the way they are giving lands to the farmers. The government themselves should be able to have estates of farms. I'm talking, if you go to US, you will walk kilometers. It's all farm produce. Either apple, corn, pineapple, all kinds of stuff. We can have the same thing. Everything should not be about church. If you look at it now, that most of the place we used to have as agro-allied now have been turned into churches.
Goodness.
So instead of us to be progressing, we are regressing, and we think that we are closer to God. How closer can you be when you cannot feed your own people?
So I want to ask you one question before we go, because I'm going to have to leave soon. As people are hearing you, maybe they're fired up, they want to say, okay, I want to think about going into farming. Where do they start from? Who should they talk to first? And can they get that startup money to start?
Well, they can start from any Ministry of Agriculture of their states. And that is why, what I mean is that they have people expert there. Apart from going to consultants like ourselves, ours might be expensive, but if you go to the State Ministry of Agriculture, they will give you all the ample information you need. Then most of this seedling, I believe in what we call family farming. Family farming is what you can do in your backyard. If you're able to feed your nucleus family, it's going to reduce the congestion in the market. You'll be able to feed your family, and at the same time, be able to take to the community to sell the excess. That way you have enough food. But if there's no seed that you are going to plant, it's a problem. Like in my own backyard, I have snail farm, which is very easy to rear. Easy, if you have snail farm, you just be eating snail every day. And they multiply a whole lot. A snail can really give you eggs of almost about 200 eggs at a time. We have different kind of snail that can give you what you really need. You can plant some of these vegetables in your backyard. If you throw ordinary corn in your backyard, it will grow. If you just throw the seeds of these tomatoes or pepper in your backyard, it will grow. If you can be able to cut your weedu, okra in your backyard, you don't have to go to the market. So the government really need to go back to the basics. Let's go back to the basics where everybody is really encouraged to go into family farming before the government can really do more.
Well, thank you so much. This has been an enlightening morning on agriculture. Thank you.